how the hell does a nuclear reactor work? How does it make energy? Talk to me through the physics of it all.
It's just a giant boiler. It just takes advantage of the fact that when nuclear fission occurs, heavy molecules like uranium or plutonium break apart and release lots of energy, and that's captured in various mediums. Typically, it's heavy water or light water, heavy water in the CANDU reactors, light water for most of the other boiled water reactors throughout the world. There's also molten salt is one of the mediums. Gas and graphite are two other options. And it just runs that through a heat exchanger to generate steam. Steam turns a turbine. Turbine generates electricity.
It's very similar to hydropower in that it turns a turbine, right?
Yeah, except you have to generate the steam first. Hydro is more just passive, using the run of the flow of the river.
Right, but how does it actually? How does it actually work? Like, talk to me. So through uranium, how does it get broken apart? Like, how does that work?
When uranium is configured in a specific orientation and then it's bombarded with neutrons, it will reach a criticality. So criticality basically means that it's generating more heat than is being consumed, it's releasing more neutrons than are being consumed. And then those neutrons will split, and I think it's 3 neutrons will be released for each uranium that is broken apart. And then they have, in order to maintain criticality, they need to keep that at 1. So they have moderators and that will absorb 2 out of those 3 neutrons, so that otherwise you could reach supercriticality, and that's bad.
Bad.
Because you don't want too much, and then because that's how.
Yeah, I'm like trying to visualize when you're building it.
Because I'm not a nuclear physicist myself. Like, I'm just a chemical technologist, so I've been just going off the deep end, learning as much as I can for myself. But it's when uranium breaks apart, releases neutrons, and then those neutrons scatter and then break apart the next uranium, and then it just keeps cascading through the reactor. So they have to absorb enough neutrons so that it doesn't go overcritical, but then they have to make sure that they're not absorbing too many neutrons, that it stays at the right criticality level. Because if it goes subcritical, then it'll wind down and it won't sustain the fission reactions.
Right. Oh, so the criticality is like the reactions to keep going, keep happening.
Yeah, you just want to find that sweet spot.
And what the hell is heavy water?
Heavy water is it's water that has the hydrogen is deuterium. Deuterium is just hydrogen with a neutron on it, because standard hydrogen is just a proton and an electron, but deuterium is a proton and a neutron, and with still the same electron. And then there's also tritium, which has 2 neutrons, which is even less common occurring naturally, but it does get produced in the process of nuclear fission.
And why does it take so long to build these nuclear reactors?
Because there's a robust regulatory environment that ensures that they are incredibly safe, so that there is minimal risk of an accident. But adhering to those regulatory requirements requires a lot of upfront capital and a lot of licensing and environmental assessments, and those processes can take as much as 10 years before a reactor can get greenlit.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But once you get over that hurdle, especially with SMRs that are going to be built in a fleet design, then you can just start pumping them out like mad. Like, you'll have specific geographies that you'll need to do environmental assessments, but once the licensing is done and all the regulatory requirements are overcome, then we just start building them.
Oh, so most of the regulatory requirements are for a specific design of a reactor?
Yeah. So right now in Canada, there's 12 small modular reactor designs being proposed to come to market. And there's probably going to be 5 or 6 that get chosen at various sizes from 1 megawatt to 300 megawatts, depending on the application, on-grid, heavy industry, or off-grid.
And is it individual companies pitch the designs, and then companies choose to take those designs and construct from them?
Yeah. Like, we've got GE Hitachi is working with the Darlington site. NewScale is working with the Pickering site. Moltex is working with the Point Lepreau site. We've got Global First Power is working with the CNL site. I believe there's more out there from like Arc Energy, X Energy, Terrestrial, Starcore, Westinghouse. There's
There's a
various
lot.
proposals. Yeah. So at the moment, there's only 5, maybe 6 that have been deals that have been announced, but there's probably going to be more because the goal is the first initial goal is to get the demonstration reactors built. And then once that's done, we can overcome that chicken and egg regulatory issue and start building them commercially and potentially for export as well.
So the construction regulations, are they Canada specific, or is that to do with, I know there's the like international nuclear, whatever it is. Is it an international set of standards, or is it?
Yeah, the International Atomic Energy, they have international standards, and then Canada has the Canadian Nuclear Safety Committee. That's the CNSC is our domestic regulatory body, and pretty much the goal is to get it as standardized across the world as possible. Like Russia has their own regulatory bodies. The U.S. has the.
Can we laugh at that?
Yeah, the U.S. has the NRC. Well, Rosatom actually, like they have lots of customers lined up to get their reactors.
The Russian ones.
Yeah. There's countries throughout Africa and the Middle East and Asia that are interested in nuclear. That they don't really care what Russia's up to.
Wow, we could talk about that separately.
Yeah, that gets into complex geopolitical things.
Yeah,
but they are definitely our competitor because Russia and China are Canada's main competitors in the SMR game for international deployment.
And will the SMR modules, when they're created and they're approved, will that wipe out any need to build these larger reactors? Is that the death of those? Is the desire just to only have SMRs?
Not necessarily. Like there's potentially room for all the different types. Like there's still like the UAE's just built a few large reactors. The Hinkley Point C is almost finished in the UK. I think there's the reactors in Georgia that have been taking a while, but they're almost finished.
Taking a while because
like 15 years.
When you say like the small reactors, what is the scale compared to like a normal nuclear reactor?
The term small modular reactor applies to reactors that are less than 300 megawatts. Like the conventional reactors are in like 600, 700 megawatt units. Right. And they benefit from the economies of scale. So they can have a wider customer base to share the risk of the costs with.
Well, I have no idea what that amount of power, how many people that services. So if you had one of these SMRs, I mean, how many would we need in the UK to serve 70 million people?
Well, it depends because it would be locally dependent. And it's the difference is you can build one large reactor and then all the transmission infrastructure to get it to the customers, or you can build the SMRs in like hyper local grids. You
have a look at how much grid the UK grid uses. I'd love to. I guess you might have an idea of what the Canada grid uses. Does Canada have a single grid? Because
it's pretty spread out. Yeah, there's lots of like as soon as you start getting further north, it gets pretty remote, and there's a lot of off grid that depends on diesel. That's the goal of the SMR action plan for off grid is to get remote communities off of diesel, upgrade them to nuclear with these small modular reactors.
Okay, but I can't imagine the construction of a small modular reactor is going to be cheap. What's like the estimated cost?
The first of a kind reactors are going to be in the orders of several hundreds of millions, a few billion, but the expected cost of once the technology is mature, the cost will be cut in half because once the manufacturing facilities are built and all of the supply chains are developed and the expertise is aligned, that will significantly drive the cost down as more reactors are deployed. But yeah, getting it over those initial hurdles is going to be quite costly and require like public-private risk sharing and capital investment. And
so it says Greater London uses just under 40,000 gigawatt hours. So it says it could be supplied by 2 or so like large nuclear power plants.
Okay, so that'd be like 4 SMRs.
Depends on the type of SMR. If you're going with a 300 megawatt unit, then yeah. But if you want to apply it to like a small community that only needs 15 to 20 megawatts, you can build either a few of the really small reactors that are going to be in the 10 megawatt range.
Oh, you can build like tiny versions of these.
Yeah, that's the plan. Like, because we're going to have, we want to build some that are in the 1 to 10 megawatt range, in the like 50 to 150 megawatt range, and then like the 200 to 300 megawatt range. So we'll have a wide variety of applications that these reactors can be applied to.
So the smaller ones, 1 to 10 megawatts, what kind of size geography do they need?
Like a track field, hockey arena.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, not much.
Okay. And do they know the construction time on something like that?
They're expecting the smaller ones to be in the orders of like 1 to 2 years, and then the larger ones being like the 5 years ballpark.
So it's really important to get through that regulatory process then.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And are there enough people out there who are available to be able to work, to construct these, to work at these? Well, is that another thing that has to be worked on to train people up?
Yeah, in many jurisdictions, that is the case. That's why it is being so costly to build the Hinkley reactor and the Vogel reactor in Georgia for the UK and the US markets, because they let their supply chain atrophy by not building or refurbishing any of the reactors for decades. Whereas in Canada, we are actively refurbishing our reactors right now. The Darlington has undergone refurbishment. The Point Lepreau reactor has undergone refurbishment. Bruce reactor is currently under refurbishment. So this will extend the life of those reactors for at least another 4 decades.
What's involved in refurbing it? Is it essentially using the site to put in new technology?
Yeah, a lot of the parts in these reactors are interchangeable. They can just be replaced with new parts, and like the pressure tubes just get replaced with fresh zirconium pressure tubes, and they replace the turbines if they need to. Just anything that's starting to show its age just gets replaced. But the core of the reactor pretty much remains unchanged.
And how much time goes into refurbing a reactor as opposed to like building one from scratch?
Each reactor probably takes like 2 to 3 years
to refurb.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that has the advantage of like sustaining our supply chain and our workforce and making sure that the industry remains robust and doesn't lose our expertise.
So why has there been so much of a slowdown in the development of nuclear reactors and essentially the decommissioning of reactors? We know Germany has been doing it. We know, I think there's one in California, but we have less nuclear power now, right, than we did 2-3 decades ago. Is that correct?
I believe so, but especially in the West. But then, countries like the UAE, they went all out. They're building several, I think like 4 or 5 gigawatts worth of nuclear. I think they just fired up the first one, and there's 3 more set to go over the next 3 years. And they're working with the South Korean design.
Right. Can you have a look at how much power the UAE uses? Because I'm wondering if 4 is enough to provide them all the energy they need.
Well, I think these are like 700, 800 megawatt units. And they build them in, like each reactor facility will have like 4 units in one housing facility.
This is from 2013. It says electricity demand in the UAE has reached 105 billion kilowatt hours.
Right. I don't know.
Those numbers just mean nothing to me.
Yeah, they mean nothing.
I don't know what that means.
It's hard to make sense of these numbers unless you're deeply entrenched in energy. They intend to like overbuild their capacity, use it for like desalination operations, water treatment, chemical processes, hydrogen production. There's all kinds of high intense energy applications that nuclear is going to apply to, including Bitcoin mining.
Okay, so sorry. So these sites are used for more than just the production of energy.
Because they use the heat too. Like, because you can instead of running the steam through a turbine, you can direct that heat into various chemical processes and use it for that, and for various industries that need high quality steam to run their operations.
What can you give me some examples of that?
Like ammonia production, hydrogen production, just all kinds of synthetic fuels like methanol. There's going to be quite a few. And then it can also be used in like mineral refining processes, just mining in general. They want to use them for the oil sands in Alberta to get them off of natural gas. and that will dramatic because they can provide both electricity and the steam to the oil sands operations.